And we are now live on Facebook.
No,
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I just want to welcome everyone. Now, can you pronounce your name for me, Carl? Because I am pronouncing it in so many different ways, and I know I'm slaughtering your name. Can you say what your name is so I can get it right?
it's simple. It's Karel,
Karel.
but everybody said Karl. Yeah. And Eiknaar is easy. It's Eikenaar. But the first three letters, they form the sound I. And then it comes easy. So the first three letters is Eikenaar. That's the name. Yeah. It's a
Got it.
Dutch name, a Dutch family name.
Exactly, and of course, I had a feeling because as an English person, I was slaughtering it. It's like I Jekanar. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm like, how does that work? And then I'm like, maybe it's just Ikanar, but okay, Ikanai. I would never
Eikenaar is
that.
this. I know in America nobody was able to pronounce it. Nobody. Nobody.
And I know, and Karel. Then I've heard Carl, and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't pronounce it, but it is Karel, so I actually was right because originally I was thinking,
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'm getting that wrong. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, everybody who's watching. We are live tonight with Karel Akanai, and he is. Where do you live currently at the moment? What country are you in at the moment?
I live in Israel, in Tel Aviv.
He lives in Tel Aviv, and he is the most incredible classical horseman who has been an FEI dressage trainer and instructor, and is a member of the International Dressage Trainers Club. What Carl doesn't know is probably not worth knowing, and so we are so lucky today to have him here to chat to us and give us some nuggets of his philosophy, maybe some tips on some training and finding trainers, and basically have a nice old chat. So if any of you, I'm live on the group, so if any of you have a question, you can pop the question here and I will see it. The group, those of you in the members group, you have access to the Zoom. You have the Zoom link. So if you want to be brave and pop onto the Zoom link, you can join at any point. I will let you into the room and you can ask your question directly, but you can also just post on the group. I am watching that group as well. At least I try to, because I'm trying to be here and be there and be here and be there. It's one of the fun things about going live. So, Carol, tell me, first thing I want to ask you about is your career. Now, how did you get started in horses? Where and when did you start?
More or less like I think everybody else who makes his profession later on from being with horses. I started in Holland in the pony club. And really ponies. There was a pony club in Den Haag where I grew up. And they had about 20 ponies. That meant you was a member and you have to come and you have to mark out and to clean and etc. etc. And then you could have a riding lesson. So that is how I started. And that was typical like it was in England, It was only ponies and only children. And we did everything what belongs to it, to take care of the horses mainly, but the riding, jumping, and children plays, like children do. And then there was a racetrack not far from the pony club. And the pony club for me started to get boring. And I got bigger and older, and I went to the racetrack, and then I met somebody there that I knew from school. And I started riding thoroughbreds on the track in training, never in a race, but in training. What I liked very much for a couple of years. And then I saw things happening on the racetrack, what I did not like. And it is quite a rough approach towards the horses. And I said, no, that's not my life. So then I was lucky enough that I was able to go to a riding club in Den Haag, and I met Anton Ebbe. That was one of our most successful riders in jumping and for the Dutch team. And I started riding his horses in the flat. And that was more or less my serious start. And I had in the meantime also contact with somebody in another riding club, and that was an old officer from Germany who did survive the war, and Benny Lemfold was his name, and he said, when you really want to learn to ride, you have to get proper lessons. And he took me for half a year every morning for 40 minutes on the launch. So I got very proper launch lessons and a very good sit. And from there, from there the thing started.
And what inspired you to, I mean, what did horses do for you? I love to ask this question because I think all of us horsemen have something that really drives us about horses. So what, I mean, you started in pony clubs, but I mean, you went on to then make your whole life horses. So what was it? What is it about horses that did that?
That you could talk to them, and they were always listening to you, and they never ever did give you a nasty answer back. and that is childish, but that is how it is. That is what for me was. I don't know. I felt very connected to animals, but per definition, but specific to the horses, and that grew. That started growing, and then I made a decision. I said, listen, when I finish my school, my education, then I want to be professional, and that's what I did. But lucky,
Go on.
I was lucky enough to work after school already for the president of the Dutch Equestrian Federation. So I got into the equestrian program for study a year earlier than anybody else. So before I had to go to the army, I was already certified riding instructor, junior trainer. So that was my start.
And you went into the army after that, though. Did you have to?
Yeah, I had to go to the army, and also there again, my father had contact with somebody in the army, so I was placed by the artillery, who had still horses, not by the cavalry, like in my CV. That is a misquote. But I served there for 2 years, did run the stable, and taught people to ride, and also we used the horses for, let's say, when there was something, presentation for the royal family or for a prince born, then we were part of that. We had the old uniforms, from 1800, beautiful dressed.
Wow.
Fantastic. That was nice. Yeah, it was pleasant. Yeah.
So then who then influenced you? So obviously, it's your career. So you focus on dressage, did you, or did you? Yeah, you did.
No, I did both. By Anton Ebbe was a jumping rider, so I rode his horses in the flat, and I missed the picture. The picture is gone. Can I still hear you?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, it's back. So by
Anton
Ebbe, I rode his horses in the flat, and I got jumping lessons from Anton. And dressage was something what came later, serious. But I was confronted with it. I had already, because for your qualification, riding instructor trainer is 3 years, and you have to do adventing, jumping, and dressage. So I was lucky enough to have had a friend who could afford to have lessons from a very famous trainer in the time in Holland, Van Hazelinski. And that was also the trainer from, I forgot his name in America. He writes books and anyhow. And so I was able to listen to the lessons, and I was able to get some lessons. And that was my beginning of dressage. And that was a very good start, because it was absolutely totally classic. I mean, there was no discussion of it was right or wrong. It was just right. That was it. And I continued working in the same line. So I wrote also with Jaap. Jaap Pot was in reality the person who was very influential how I saw the performance in the arena, because he was an O judge, FEI O judge, and I was allowed to sit in with him to listen when he was judging. So it trained my eye. But then after the army, I was lucky enough to work for George Theodorescu, and that you can say he influenced most of my life till today. I mean, there is still things that I would like to ask him when he was still alive, and that was really where everything came together. I mean, he was very classical, George, but he was also very good with the horses, what I like very much. They're never in one way or another way rude or rough to the horses, never ever. And when I think now back, I said he was more or less Hazelinski, he was Podajski, he was Grunier. He was that more from the southern part of Europe, not too German, because Germany was more, you have to do it now. So he influenced my doing and my thinking till today. Yeah.
So would he be? Sorry if I'm trying to let someone else into the group. They just bought their ticket and they're like, "How do we get in?" And I'm going, "You come to the other group. I've just let you in." Sorry, so I apologise if I seem
great. That's okay. That's okay.
It's a real life, right? So George Teodorescu, because again, that's names that I can't pronounce. So he would be the main influence. Do you think? Are there any other influences, like from books you've read, or are there anyone else you would say, like, I actually studied or I listened to? Is there anyone else?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in my time, the big trainers were Willy Schultz, Bobby Kunter, Dr. Reine Klimke, road competition, Joseph Neckermann. But I was typical Steinbrecht, and still today, that is the line that I think on. And the way I think that it is the correct way to develop horses. With a little bit from La Quinière, from France, Musla, Podajski. That is my line of doing and thinking. So a totally non-violent approach. Yeah. What will not mean that when a horse have to know who's in the saddle, that you have to make that clear. Yeah, but that doesn't have to be or should not be with violence. I don't think that it makes any sense to force a horse to do something. Works only when you are on your own. But in the moment that there are people watching you, then the horse is clever enough and feels that you cannot use that violence to make him work. And then what I say in my own English, they show you the finger. And that is and that you see very often. You see on shows very often that horses just play around with the rider because they know they can get away with it. So I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in force. I believe in we try together and we cooperate together and we see where we go. But you never can say from the beginning on, because some horses make it, other horses don't make it.
So if we can dig into this, because I think this is key, that the difference between force and pressure. So we know that we put a leg on, the horse moves forward, we take the leg off. So we're using pressure. We use our seat, we use our weight, but we're not. But when we say we don't want to use force, how do you, to somebody who doesn't understand this, I understand what I want you, I'm going to get you to really break this down.
Not using.
What that means. Can you break that down into what you really mean by the difference between force and normal pressure?
Force are three things. Force is that you are much rough with your hands, where you force the horse into a position where you think he should be. Yeah. We could say today the whole cure, but other things also. Another thing of force is overuse of leg. By kicking and when a horse is a little bit lazy, to take bigger spurs and to punch bigger holes in the horse's ribcage. And shouting and swearing on the top of your lungs. And overuse of whip. You have people, every single movement the horse have to make, they use the whip. Now, this is for me force. And you don't reach anything with it. The only thing what you reach with is that the horse get even more dumb. Not dumb, that's the wrong word. But they don't hear you anymore. It's like we start now with another to argue with each other, and you get louder and I get louder, and we get louder, and on the end we scream on our lungs, and nobody hears us anymore. And that is overuse of aids. That is violent. It doesn't make any sense. And you create so of a negativity in the horse that you can never build a relationship with them, never in a lifetime.
And that's the key word, isn't it? Relationship, partnership. Arthur likes to say your horse is your partner.
Yeah.
You work together. You each give and take and
Yeah.
work as a team. And
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that way you build and learn together. The horse learns what works, then you learn how the horse works, and then you work to optimize each other. So let's just go back again. Sorry, this really interests me because I think it's misunderstood, and I want to go back to what do we mean by classical training? Because I've learned some classical trainers who use whips and spurs excessively, and we'll go into some other things later. But just for that, so when you say I train classical, they're a classical trainer. What does that mean to you? Does it mean they don't use force, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, that means for me that you are building character and body of the horse according to what the horse can give you in that given moment. And that have to do with conformation. That have to do with what kind of bred the horse is. And you have to find that connection to the brain, what makes it possible to communicate with them. And then you have classical exercises. So that is the straightness, that is the deflection, that is the shoulder in, etc., etc., etc. Now, each exercise brings you to the next exercise. It is a line what contains till the Grand Prix. And not what is done today. I teach them a shoulder in, and I teach them a flying change, and I teach them a pirouette, and it is all not connected to each other. It is all tricks. And then the horse in his body he aches. And when he aches, then we said he resists. No, he does not resist.
Brilliant.
He tells us, I cannot do it. Leave me alone for this moment. Yeah. And when you continue then forcefully riding, then you destroy their brain. And that means that on the end, what you want to do in classic and correct training, bring body in a situation that the horse can do the exercises after 5 years of intensive and well training by a horse who is talented enough to do Grand Prix. That is what I call classic. And that means also that you do mental training with the horses. That is you repeat what they can do and you give them an award for it. And that brings you sometimes into a position that you said that once the horse does something and I didn't ask him to do it. So that means that he was so well prepared that without asking, he will do it for you. And that is what I call correct training. Georgie always said correct training, not classical training, but correct training. And that's also a little bit depends on what kind of horse you ride. Yeah. But classical training, okay, today we hardly see it.
Yes, so that, and you just maybe realize when you're saying, you repeat and then you reward, that's actually how we train our minds too.
Yeah, exactly.
You train a child or you train an executive in a company to perform the way you want. That's what really works. That's not always what people do, but that's what works. It's been proven in neuroscience for humans. That's what works.
Yeah.
You show them
what you said something before. You train like the mind of a child.
Yes.
And a horse is a child.
Yes.
His way of thinking, combined thinking, is from a child. So the horse learns on repetition, not directly on understanding. That's the same with small children. You repeat, and then they know what they have to do. And then they come to an age that they try to figure out by themselves what they have to do. And horses also like that. The brain is simple. And people should say, this is not correct what you say. But it is simple. The brain is not like a dog also. When a dog does something in the house, what he should not do, you come home and you say something, you hide behind the couch. That doesn't happen by a horse. Forget it. I have never seen it happening. You understand? So there is a different way. But you have horses, they are intelligent and less intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah, it is so interesting. And why do you think we've gone down? Now I'm going to go to the roll curve discussion.
Okay. Yeah.
So why have we gone down that path? If all that we know, and for hundreds of years, the most passed down theories were that this effective repetition, reward, release was the way. Why in the last, is it 20 or 30 years? Have
30 years, yeah.
Gone to Rolka, and why did Rolka ride? What, in your opinion, is the problem? And can you explain to our viewers what Rolka is, because they may not know, and because I want this to be on record, and why you think it's a really probably not a good thing for the horse? I think because it's false, but
no. Yeah, rollkuur is a position in the neck of a horse where you ride him with his nose between his front legs, and that is looking for his belly button. And that is the reason why, and I know the person very well who started with it, very well. Started from your way is too long, and I will tell you what the short way is. And we had big arguments about it over a glass of wine, What is never so good, but whatever.
Yes.
And he said it all takes much too long, and this short is the way, and that was the beginning of the rollkuur. Yeah, what was also done already by 2 riders in Germany, by Isabelle Wert with her trainer, and by Abhoff with her trainer, the same trainer. And the Dutch trainer saw it, and he copied it. And that was the beginning of, the end of for many people, the correct riding, and showing the love for horses and give the horse the time that he, with a 10, 11 years old, does a Grand Prix, and still will do that when he's in the 20s. But that was not any more necessary. That was also set like that. You know, the whole dressage will be turned around. With other words, it comes a circus. It comes, and that is what it is today. It is a kind of a circus, a bad circus, the good circus with knee. And in the time, that was very classical. Those people, they came from the Spanish riding school. So the wrong circus, the trick.
Yeah.
And the audience, and you cannot blame the audience, but the audience, they like the show. And the horses went in movements, in gaits, what is catching the eye of the spectator. They see the front legs swinging all over the place, and they think this is all fantastic. But then I and many others like me, I'm not the only one. And we said, what is happening then from behind? There is no back leg of the horse, there is no tracking, there is no swing to the back of the horse. You know, a lot of angry faces in the horses, mouth problems, tongue over the bit, tongue out of the mouth wide open. The tail goes around like a helicopter takes off. Because it is force.
Because it actually is it's extremely stressful, isn't it? The hyperflexion, and it works because, and is it because when the horse is released, it sort of, its body goes like woo, and it floats upwards. So creating this extravagant movement, because the horse has like been let out of jail, so it suddenly feels like, thank God for that. But it's not a natural reaction. So what appears like, oh wow, look what they've created, is just actually a reaction to pain and force. So obviously there's been a lot of argument in the FEI over the years, and where are we now with it? I mean, it hasn't gone. You and I talked the other day. You said there are still people using this, right? And many. Yeah, that's really sad to hear.
Many.
I hope you'd say just a handful, but no, you're saying
no, many.
And I mean, it's like cruelty to animals. I don't know. I mean, like, it happens all over the world, and we don't know how to stop it. I mean, so. Do you think, what is the answer? Do we just need to educate a new generation? Do we need to really get people to understand more? Because they're possibly, some of them doing by ignorance, they don't understand how bad it is, or they get into it for the quick win.
Yeah, exactly. That's also, but that is the issue. What you said before is totally correct. We have to re-educate the young children. We have to start by those who are innocent. But that is very difficult, because so long they see that the so-called top riders get highly quoted and by the judges, then as a trainer like me, or you yourself, you tell the children this is wrong, you should not do it, and right away they attack you and say, but Ankie van Gunsveen does it, and Isabelle Wert does it, and So how do you defend it? when you don't get, and now I come to something what I discuss very often, this all could be over tomorrow. Tomorrow. When the judges will do what they have to do. And that is judging according to the regulations of the FEI. And then it's over. But they don't have the guts. They don't want to give up their nice life. Yeah. They have no power to go against the FEI or against the big trainers and the big breeders, because everybody is in the same pot.
Yes.
Because there is so much money involved from the breeders, from the owners of the horses, the trainers, that I hope that we get rid of it. But
money, eh? It can make so many things. It can be used for good and it can be used for bad. It's just a tool, but when it's used for bad, it is. Yeah. That is. Yeah.
It's a shame, but I don't want to sound so negative, because I do know that there is a movement in the younger generation. Yeah, because I do some Zoom here and some Zoom there. Yeah. That there is a younger generation who they realize that this way of riding is wrong by definition, and that it only does harm. I mean, when I was young, when you had a vet in the stable, because your horse was lame, and a physiotherapist, and that you had to inject all the joints and ligaments, and all this what you have today. We never had it because it didn't exist. You know why it didn't exist? Because we didn't rode the horses into scramble. We didn't over ask our horses. And today the doctor can live in your stable. You can make a special living area for the doctor, for the physiotherapist, for the chiropractor, and all how you call all those people. Yeah?
Yeah. And we can rebuild the horses and keep them going, so we can stress them more in the early years, because we, and then they don't last as long.
No,
it is, and I mean, I'm going to mention the T name, the Tortillas. And I mean, he died of colic, but his career didn't last that long. I don't know if you want to if you have anything to say about that, or whether you want to go there or not.
Oh yeah, when you're proud to have the gold medal and you ruin a horse, then it is up to them to be proud. But I think it is totally harassment and molesting of an animal. And he was a fantastic. I know that he was one of the best horses I've ever seen as a young horse under a Dutch rider. And what they did to him is terrible.
I know, it's heartbreaking. It's
heartbreaking. And it continues. I mean, we had a big discussion on it. You have seen it on Facebook. Yeah, but it just continues. But again, I come back to the judges. When the judges stop giving high points, then it's over tomorrow. And when the judges do realize that why you are a judge, that is in the first place, and there's FEI rule and regulations, take care of the welfare of the horse. And when you see that the horse is not taking care of his welfare when he has to perform in the arena, then as judges, and I'm to the point, then don't sit on the judging table. Don't pretend to be a judge.
Yes, and yes, it is. There's so much more to it than it first appears. Okay, so let's look at what we can do. So we've now looked at the problem. So firstly, one of the problems we have, I think, is that the younger generation now, more than when I was young, everyone wants to win. And this is the problem, because everyone wants to win tomorrow. Like the 12-year-olds want to get on the team. Like, I rode as a kid. I didn't think, now like every 12-year-old is doing British Young Riders Dressage, and they're going to the Olympic trainers at 12. So pressure. So there's no time. It's like, buy that horse that's being produced, or buy that pony, whatever.
But that's correct, yeah.
So it starts there, and somehow it feels to me like we need to bring back the love. This is my simple way of putting it. We need to bring back the love of horses, because the people I've got some lovely people I've taught over the years, but I've also met some people who didn't love their animals. The animal is a means to the next medal, to the next competition. So they don't care if they're forcing it or roll currying it or kicking it to death or whatever. And the thing is, it's an ignorance. I like to believe they do not know what they do, and that somehow we need to bring back the love of horse. I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to try. This is what I'm going to try, because I've got a little a pony share website that's starting, and it's going to be like you can do lover pony experiences virtually.
Yeah.
Because I just want to teach people that like grooming, for example, is like we don't do it anymore because there's no time. We like ride the horse, put the horse away. If someone else maybe grooms it quickly, but grooming used to be how you bonded with your horse.
Yeah.
And it felt good for you, and it felt good for the horse. And we haven't got time for that anymore. Like, oh, it's clean enough. We've rugged it up from head to heel. It hasn't got... So a little tiny thing like that. So I make all the kids groom, Carol. I make them all groom. And because I say you've got to spend time with your horse, you're going to ride it, you're going to groom it. So...
Yeah, for sure. That is how it should be.
Little things. It's like, and maybe some of that will soak in. Anyway, so we've got our new generation, and we're there. So people listening, how do they choose a good trainer? Because the problem is when you're starting out in this world and you've got maybe a teenager and they're interested in eventing or dressage. How do you know that you're going to go to the right person? So how would you advise them to pick a trainer that they can work with along classical or correct training principles? What would you advise them to do?
I will tell them, go to Facebook. And why to Facebook? Because in Facebook you find a lot of trainers, and you find a lot of what they produce. And then you have to ask yourself then, is that something I like to see? Is that pleasant? And when you have every human being, you cannot cheat humans like you cannot cheat horses and dogs. When it looks good, it has to be good. And that means, is it relaxed? Is it harmony? Is that something that you say, yeah, they work together. Look at this. It goes so easy. And then you see another rider, and it is here and hand and there and hand and a kick, and they hang behind the vertical line, and you see it. Now that is your first impression, and then you have to investigate what kind of name the person has. What today is very easy. I mean, social media, you get everything on the plate. Everything is there, nothing to hide anymore. And when you don't find out that it is a pleasant person and he's good for the horses, then you do a tryout. And that means that you go, and you don't go by announcing that you come. You just go. And then you said, sorry, can I? Yeah, okay. And then you see the person working and giving lessons and riding it. That is your next impression. Is it an aggressive person? Is the person loud? Is the person rude? Are the horses treated in the stable calm? Is the stable atmosphere very quiet? Every horse is eating. Horses are lying on the ground, they're resting, not jumping around in the stables. So that is then the next thing you do. And then you take 1 or 2 lessons because you have to try it out. And then you say, yeah, it fits me. But today with social media, we can get all the information before we even go to a trainer or a stable. And then also what I advise, go to a show and see how the trainer is coaching. Is that a nervous wreck, or is that a very controlled person? Is that a person who understands when you come out of the arena and you had a lousy test? That's just the trainer instead that you're here and now you're down. Like that. Come on, boy or girl, pick up your head. I also, when I was a kid, I fell on my face. Who cares? Continue doing it. So this is all what you have to investigate about somebody that you can call your trainer or coach.
Yeah. So do your homework but know what you're looking for. And understand you're looking for kind, compassionate.
Kind, calm. But on the other side also a person who has this from, do it again because it is not right. But not just say, do it again, it is not right. Why it was not right. In your preparation in the corner, your horse was too much on the inside rein. He fell over the outside shoulder. So we have to correct on the short side the required collection or self-carriage. And we have to ride the corner deeper and better with more elevation. Then we come on the diagonal. We think on shoulder 4 till the moment of the flying change. Then you do your flexion on the other side and you fly. That is what I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the detail, because I think that's where what I call the fake trainers manage to, they can sound good, but they don't actually tell you the how. They'll say, do it better, more bend. And you're like, how do I get more bend? More
Exactly.
engagement. How do I get more engagement?
Exactly.
and
Exactly. That is important.
oh,
And
sorry, Mike.
that when we come a little bit back to what the judges, the influence from the judge on the performance of today, because they don't criticize, give us high marks, and it's for two reasons. First of all, they play the game. You know, they're paid off, in my opinion, by not directly money, but by to be connected to the person who wins. You know, a kind of an
Yes.
you have to picture the moment, and
Stop barking.
they love that, you know.
Yeah.
But I only think that a real judge have to be a person who wrote on that level or a level lower, but at least on that level what he judged, but also a trainer. Because I make my judgment not on the flying change on X. I make my judgment, let's say, in the short side, collected canter left. Yeah, and then the collected canter to the corner on the diagonal by X flying change, continuation collected canter to the next corner, and then on the next short side transition trot. That's under the same lesson. When I can see as a trainer that a horse cannot do it right, that is what I do. Then I set my student up. I correct my student. I prepare my horse better to get a good flying change.
Yes.
But when I don't see that as a judge, when I cannot that I cannot analyze why it went wrong, that is not the flying change went wrong. No, the opening to the collected canter went wrong because the horse was, the croup on the inside was crooked, so could not elevate his outside shoulder, and etc. etc. etc.
Yeah.
You know.
So, do you think that judging is really good for a trainer to do, so they get to wear that hat? Do you think all good trainers should spend some time judging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a clinic from the International Dressage Trainers Club in Deurne in the Netherlands, and we, or the organizer, had invited top judges, top judges, and the game was on the second day. The trainers had to give the mark against the judges, and what came out that the trainers are much lower in giving the mark, but much more clear in the remarks, and the judges weak in the remarks, but very high in the marks. So as judges, we were much more direct, and the participants, they loved it because they said, now we hear the truth, now we know what we have to do to make it better. Yes. And that was a fantastic clinic, 3 days. Yeah, wow. It was in the time the International Dressage Trainers Club, that was always a 3-day gathering where we spoke not only during the day with presentation or execution, but also in the evening with dinner and then afterwards. And that was brainstorming with each other, where most of us, except and the whole friend of mine, where we had very positive discussions. Yeah.
And it's that kind of discussion that really deepens one's knowledge. So for professionals, so we've talked about how you'd hire a coach if you're an amateur. But what's your advice for professionals? Because actually about 70% of the people in the group are professional riders. Mm-hmm. And so what is your advice for them to deepen their knowledge?
To meet each other and to talk openly about what we are confronted with. And say it the way it is. Mm-hmm. And not doing nice socializing. Socializing, you don't you have a professional discussion, and that means what I said, say the truth towards each other. Mm-hmm. And that is at the moment not, in my opinion, not any more directly available. And that stops also the development on the way back to the correct performance. When we don't put it on the table, then it stays the way it is. No, we have as professionals, we have to be willing to understand our own wrongdoing. Mm.
And well, yes, but you're making me realize that's also tied back to money, because we have professionals that won't say the truth to their clients, because if they say the truth to their clients, they get fired. So
Yeah.
they therefore sort of mollycoddle their clients, and then the clients can't actually get better. So and then those clients are very rich. They know the judges, and then the judge, and you get in this perpetual cycle that we've discussed. So it's, I've trained with Arthur Cottas, and he was renowned in his younger days for being quite grumpy, and when you were terrified. I mean, not nowadays, I'm not, but I used to go into the lesson like I was terrified what he was going to do. But you know what? That gave him an edge. I would ride better because I was very slightly in awe and terrified, and but also, like he wouldn't let anything slide. You couldn't just sort of have your left hand twitching slightly and then that be ignored. He would catch you on everything, and you know what? He lost him clients, but he didn't care because he was Arthur Cottas. So he was really.
What you said, he didn't care because it was Cottage. No, that is a good professional. You should not take care. Yeah, you don't. You know that is a mentality problem. And I always said, when I do it for the sport, and I do it for the horses. And when people don't like it, then I don't go to the restaurant and eat a steak. And when I cannot eat a steak for 5 months and I still feel proud on what I deliver, then I will survive without the steak. For that you need guts. Yeah. And this is the issue in the modern type, in the modern trainers. Yeah. They don't have the guts to say no to a client. They don't have to say, it's time that you get your act together. It's time that your hand stops pulling all the time. And don't ride the horse here, and then they go away. They go to another trainer because the other trainer will say, Carl, come on, he's arrogant, he's here, he is there. I will tell you how it should be, and you did so well. He just was looking for an argument with you. For example, that happens. And Kotas was also a man like that. They say, you do it correct, or you don't do it at all. The rest goes exactly the same. Or you did it correct, or you could have all the money from America, because we had clients, he didn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
He said that's not the way it should be done. Or you want to learn to ride, or you want to do the tricks. When you want to do the tricks, go to another trainer. Don't come to me.
Yeah, it's holding oneself to a professional standard for the correct principles of training. And so your International Horseman Club of Trainers, whatever. Sorry, I haven't got that thing.
International Dressage Trainers Club, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that still exists, does it? Because I've never heard of that.
It exists, but it is since the president passed away, Herman Kukek. It fell apart many years ago, and then Mr. Chef Jansen took over, and then it became a part of how you call it, Bartel's presentation.
Training, yes, exactly.
So that means we were there sitting as decoration. And it was one day, and the whole thing fell apart.
Right.
So the whole idea from Kukek to have, he saw that happening 35 years ago, that the line of correct training was in danger. Then he started the International Dressage Trainers Club. And that was only open for people who had written international and had students who wrote international. And that was what I said before. We had open discussions, and it was very often with the fist on the table. Because there was a group who thought that the whole who started then to be successful because the judges were willing to give the high marks. So who is right and who is wrong? And it is not a matter who is right and who is wrong. The point is here: does the horse suffer from it, or does he not suffer from it? This is the point. That is the point in the discussion, and nothing else. And when the horse have to, when the horse have to pay the price for something what we want to do in a short time, then we should not be trainers. We should not. That's extreme, but we should not be trainers and riders and judges and whatever we want to be, because the horse is dependent on us. And when we do something with them, that we take their personality away from them. We take away the smallest chance to look at something because they're completely blinded. They only see 1 meter in front of the front foot. They're totally dominated by the human being. There is nothing left from freedom. I want a horse who likes to see something in the corner and maybe he jumps away or he lifts his head up because he sees far away from him, he sees another horse. Because the horse should be alive. And this is what we take away completely.
Yes.
Completely.
They need to be our advance partners. So it's so lovely to hear you talk refreshingly, and my little brain's going, what can we do? There must be so many people thinking like this. But again, your voice, and people like you needs to be able to drown out the other, and that's the hard part.
That's the hard part, yeah.
That's the hard part. So going back into training for our last few minutes together, I want to pick your brain for people who've got their own horses at home, and I think this is always people's dilemma. So from the simplest thing of how often should they... Now, I know you're going to say how long is a piece of string, that depends on the horse, but let's just take an average horse, because obviously... If an average horse that's not that hot or not that lazy, are you somebody who feels that you should do some gymnastic work with the horse every day, or do you think that we over-school today and that horses should do more hacking? Well, what are your feelings on how much we should work our horses, as in school, as opposed to just exercise?
Let's say a young horse, then I think exercising twice. Let's say a young horse, 3.5 years, we bring them under the saddle. We ride them for 2 months, then they go back on the fields that the snow comes, and then around this time we start riding them again. So we have the basic is done. Yeah, and why? Because those young horses who come from the grass in the spring, they don't have power, so they don't buck too much. They don't, so easy to break them in. Yeah, and then when it is done, they go back on the grass for twice a week, and then once a week, let's say cavaletti free jumping. It's good for the back. It's good for something different, once a week, lunging, and for, let's say, 20 minutes. And then the other 2 days riding the horses outside.
So lots
under the trees, where you can do a lot with them, because the ground, you go up the hill, down the hill. There is a small stream for water, they jump over it. There is a falling tree, you jump over it. So very basic, playing around with them to build confidence and trust between the person in the saddle and themselves and the surrounding. When they get older, then still more or less the same, but more intensive. But for sure, by Theodor Eschel, we wrote in the summer, by Georgie, we never practiced the test. No.
Interesting.
No. We practice parts of the test.
Yes.
But never the test. And Georgie always said, when they can do it, they can do it. And when you practice the test, and you practice the test 2-3 times, you don't make the performance better. It's only for yourself. So we never practiced the test. Never.
How interesting.
We rode the horses outside, in the summer, at least 3 days a week outside. And then we did on a nice aisle, we did shoulder in, we did renvers, we did travers, we did short half pass, across of the road, you cross over the road a little bit sharp, we made a flying change, or we did counter canter, We did all our work outside, a little bit down the hill, a little bit piaffe, because the horse sits already a little bit, We had one place that was specially built for us, it was very steep. From sand, very steep, and then we go down like they did in the old cavalry. The horses really with the back leg on the front leg, for muscle development and balance development. Yes. So we did a lot of our training outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which we seem to be losing. England was always very much an outside country, but now everyone's got a school now, and so they live in their schools, and I think it's kind of sad, because the horse loves to see variety, and it's so good for them. So I think, because if you overschool, my experience is they
lose interest.
They go dead. Yeah. They're like,
completely. Yeah, they don't want anymore.
Yeah, and people go. Then they get the big spurs and the whip out, and then the trainer chases them with a lunge whip, and you start hacking the horse. So my horse, I have a Holsteiner, and he's 14 now. He's working advanced. He does a little piaffe and he does his changes. He started doing tempi changes, but then he had an accident, so we kind of stopped. But anyway, for a while. So, but when I first got him and was working with him years ago, he's so not interested. So I turned him into a jumper. So the way to make him love life again was I took him out show jumping. No, he didn't jump to it 90 centimetres.
Doesn't matter.
But he perked up and they did a little cross country and then he was completely forward. It changed him entirely.
Yeah.
And and if he gets stale now, we go off and we do something like that. He's like, okay, time to go have lots of fun.
but dressage for horses is boring.
Yeah.
I mean, another circle, another circle, another circle, another shoulder in, another flying change. Yeah. I mean, you don't need the indoor to teach them all of this. That's what I said by Georgie. We work to our horses even in the winter.
Yeah.
You know, you can teach them everything outside. And not only that, what you teach them better than you teach them in the indoor is rhythm and balance.
Yes.
Because the ground is uneven outside. So they have to find their natural balance back. And because every horse, young horse, never ridden, knows how to do walk, trot, and canter in the correct footfork and totally in balance. And when they lose it, when we sit in the saddle.
Good point. Exactly.
And then we have to retrain them by holding the head down.
Yes.
That doesn't work.
No.
We have to sit on top of their back, totally in balance, totally above point of gravity of their point of gravity. So that we don't disturb their natural rhythm and balance. And then every horse under the rider can do walk, trot, and canter. In rhythm.
Underneath a rider that can hold themselves in balance. Because if you're like this,
exactly.
the horse can't manage to do that with you.
And then the trainers and then the rider said, my horse cannot trot. Yeah, he cannot trot in balance. He get irregular. He start pushing his back away because they hang all behind the big blocks on the saddle and the shoulders are so far behind this vertical line. It's disgusting. I mean, when I see it, it's disgusting. And then they wonder that those horses cannot work from behind. When you see today piaffe, how many good piaffes are there? No. I hardly see any. They're all with the butt in the air, on the forehand.
Yes.
And then the riders are more in piaffe than the horses are in piaffe.
Yes, that's so true. In fact, even at a clinic I attended, and I don't know if you know Miguel Ralu.
Yeah.
And he was a clinician, and a couple of people I knew were having lesson. He was like, "What the hell are you doing?" As they were butt bouncing themselves on the saddle.
Exactly.
Or not. But they thought incorrectly that they had to lift themselves out of the saddle to let the back come up. So they got, to the horse. It was really interesting, but it's easy for people to get. Someone told them that, and then someone else saw that, and then just like Chinese whispers, and that's where we need the principles. So we should have you back on just to talk about piaffe, because I think, and actually we could do a whole masterclass on the beginnings of piaffe and through to how you ride, and because people don't recognize it. We could have some little videos of how it should be done and how it should be done. We should do that. Would you do that?
Yeah.
Because
I can talk about it. Yeah, for sure.
So
I want to say something that you said about the horses. What do you do in training, but also with the people? When you have riders, then you have to give them time to develop themselves also. So be every day in training by a big trainer. That is not working, because then you depend on the trainer. The trainer tells you what to do. You never develop your own feel or get mature enough to react on what you feel. And when you fall on your face, Georgie always said, then you fall on your face. And then the next day, I don't say a word to you. So you fall again on your face because you deserve it. And then the day after, then you come to me, you said, please, Georgie, can you tell me what I did wrong? And because that's also important. So overloading the horses with information and training, overtraining, is also with the people. Let the people be. Once a week, twice a week, specific when it is simple riding, walk, trot, canter, big circle. They don't need you every day. And even riders on top level don't need you every day. Because when you ride in that arena, you have to do the Grand Prix. And every step on the way, your coach tells you what to do in the training. How can you ride in a good Grand Prix?
Yes, yes. Particularly in America. America's really
Yeah,
trainers.
don't say it loud.
I used to live in America. Shh, we won't say anything about that.
I did live there for I teach altogether more than 15 years in America, and I did live there with my wife and children for 8 years, and I continued another 2 years, so I was 11 years in America.
Wow, you know then.
Yeah.
But it is. You've got to teach thinking riders. I think there was a book by Molly Sivrite, who was a fellow of the British Horse Society. I think it was called Thinking Riders. And if you don't think, but training a horse is a constant thing every time you get on its back, and you have to be aware and understand, and then you need to feel. You're at the very beginning, and we're kind of getting to the end there, so I'm going to go back to where you started. We have to feel our horses. We have to be aware, and we have to understand how they feel, and we have to make them want to play. Make them want to play. You know.
I remember that I was already certified instructor in Holland before I went to Georgie, and then I was about half a year by Theo Dresco, and then at once he came. I was living in his house, by the way. I was like his son. He also controlled my life like I was his son, with good and bad, but he did. But he comes with a book to me, and he said, "Carl, here, this is a book. You have to read the book." And I said, "Theo Dresco, that is Musla." I said, "Musla, I did read at least 3 times." He said, "Yeah, but it was the time that you could not read between the lines. Because now when you read, you said, this is what I felt, so you understand what it means. And this I never felt, so you understand how much you have to do to feel before you understand the second part of the line." And that's how it is. People should not study books. You cannot learn to write out of the book when you don't know what is in the book. And it is not a couple of words. And you're intelligent. You think that you understand what the words mean. You have never felt it. And you only understand what is written in those books when you felt it. Otherwise, it is nice. It is a story, and you can eat books. I know people, they have so many books that they can give lectures. You know, I had once a student. I don't know if you have time in Greece. And I was teaching there the riders of mainly the riders of the national jumping team in the flat work. And then there was a Samsung competition, Dressage, you know, that was 3 different levels. And I got the man, and he comes to me, and I try so I start teaching him, and the man all the time did give backfire about this book and that book and here book and that book. You know, he drove me completely nuts, completely nuts. And the next morning he comes and he said, "Before we start the lesson, I have a question, sir." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Listen, I want to buy such a stand, what is on a flute when people play music in a band. Can you tell me where to buy it?" He said, "Yeah, there is not far away, there is a music shop." He said, "Why?" I said, "Then I give you that as a present, and you put it on the stern of your horse. Yeah, and you can put your books inside, because you can ride without me."
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. No, but you're right. You know, they're an aid, but they are definitely not how you learn. You know, and it's so true. No. But like you're using the one. Sorry.
This is the big danger what we see when we cannot stop the whole cure, and when we see that the Spanish riding school is also, on a slippery slope. Very dangerous slippery slope. And your next guest will let you know that also Hans and Christine, because they are on the board of the Spanish riding school. When the knowledge is gone, the daily knowledge, the everyday working, when that is gone, and then it is gone. Because you can have all the books from 400 years, but when you don't have anymore the people who can show you how to do it and cannot explain your feelings, your positive, your negative feeling, etc., when that is not more present, then everything is gone.
Yeah.
That takes maybe 2-3 generations to rebuild it.
Yes. Yeah.
This is the danger. That is my argument, and Christina's and Hans and other friends of mine. We have to be the guardians of the correct way of riding, and when it's lost, it is lost. It doesn't come back.
We've gone slightly over, but if you're okay, I'm okay for a few minutes just before. So that brings me to a question. Made me think I need to ask you one more question. So, out of the riders you see today, are you brave enough to name some coaches or top riders that you feel do follow the correct principles? Is there anyone you would say, like, I really like how they ride and I think they are...
Bemelman is very classic.
Okay.
Jan Bemelman. I saw a lesson with him together with your British rider, with Carl Hester.
Yes.
And then I said, you see, Carl, you can ride very well. Because there was a great lesson, there was a great demonstration. And I said, yeah, Carl, you can ride very well. Because Jan Bemelman did let him go there where normally maybe he should go. I don't know. But, you know, I leave that in the middle. And for example, Ackerman. Yeah, I thought I sent you something from him. Yeah.
Yes.
And he's a very classical trainer, very correct trainer.
Yes. Exactly. Well, hopefully we're going to get to talk to him. So, you know.
Yeah, I hope so. He's an very interesting man. And he comes from a fantastic school. I mean, one of the most classical trainers living in Germany when I was living in Germany.
Yes. See, it's lovely to hear recommendations for other people, because I think sometimes, because some people may not know these names at all, and you know, and they can go and seek out other voices like yours, because if they're like me, and I'm hoping that the people in this group are interested, we're trying to attract a crowd for the betterment of the horse. This is what the Mastermind's about.
Yeah.
So we're putting a library together of voices like yourselves, and we want more voices like that, so that in the end we create this interest in this other way. And I know there's lots and lots of people interested, but I want to help drum up enthusiasm and see what we can do. Be a voice of voices. Right, on that note, sadly, we have come to an end. But it has been so charming to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
I know we didn't have, let me just double check. No one's been brave enough to ask any questions.
Okay.
But if I'm sure you're in the group, actually. So if anyone does want to ask a group in the comments, I'm sure if you ask nicely, Carol will answer a question. So if you pop it in.
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
they might just say, I've got this problem, what can I do?
I will. I mean, what you are doing, it's very interesting what you are doing, and I hope that it is very successful, because the more people can listen to, and I don't say top trainer, I'm a top trainer. No, I was successful as a trainer, as a rider, as a coach. When we talk straight, and it is important that we talk straight.
Yes.
And there are people, they like it. And there are people, and there will be at the beginning, the largest group who will say, we don't like it at all. Why? Because I say the truth. Yes. But at least you wake them up, you make them think.
Yes. Yes.
And what you said in the beginning is important. The young generation have to pick up what you are doing, so that the young generation grows up and knows there is a better way to do it. And then the horse will win.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I'm going to try and do. So I am the voice, and that's what I do. I create voices and for people, and stages for people to have a bigger voice. So that's my plan. I'm going to do everything I can to help. So thank you so much. I hope
my pleasure.
Come back and maybe do a masterclass on PF or something, because I think we'd love to get into the nitty gritty of using your seat and PF, because we brought it up tonight, and I think it's completely misunderstood concept.
It is.
We should get into that, because people always want to ask. So, all right, thank you so much. Thank you for your family to loaning us for you tonight, because I can see they've been going back in the background. They're like,
my children still live here in the house, so they go back and forth.
Well, you look after yourself. Stay warm in the winter, and hopefully it won't be too long before we speak again. Take care.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.